Alright, settle in, because my family's drama could fuel an entire season of a streaming series that would get renewed, cancelled, and rebooted twice before anyone learned a single lesson. I am Ethan, 27 years old, the allegedly responsible cousin, which is not a self-given title. It is a label my family slapped on me the way a grocery store puts a manager's special sticker on a dented can of beans. I live with my father, who is 63, recovering from knee replacement surgery. I moved in temporarily at first, but we all know how temporary situations in families like mine somehow turn into permanent installations, like that one chair in every house that nobody sits in but everyone refuses to get rid of. Now, my cousin Madison is 31. She has 2 children, Lucas, 6, who has the energy of a sugar-fueled raccoon trapped inside a bouncy castle, and Emma, 4, who is adorable but has the destructive instincts of a cartoon character holding a hammer. Madison recently landed her first steady job in what feels like forever. Truly, good for her. I genuinely mean that. I was happy when she sent me a photo of her smiling in her office chair. What I did not know was that this new job apparently elevated her into some kind of mythical figure in her own mind, because the moment she received her first paycheck, she began announcing to everyone that she was the one holding the entire family on her shoulders. She said that she was carrying the financial and emotional weight of the family tree, as if she was personally out there preventing us from collapsing into ruin. For context, growing up, my family had a very clear division of expectations that could be summed up as, Ethan handles everything, Madison handles nothing. My parents relied on me for chores, errands, caring for relatives, and responsibilities that really should have been split among multiple people. Madison, on the other hand, was the golden child, not because she earned it, but because she managed to cry her way into sympathy like it was an Olympic sport. Her mother's favorite line was always, Maddie is sensitive. Ethan is stronger. He can help more. Which translates to, Ethan is free labor, Maddie is emotionally delicate royalty who must not be disturbed by the harsh breeze of accountability. Fast forward to adulthood. My father needs help recovering from surgery, so of course I step up. I work 2 part-time jobs and freelance doing technology support, which means half my day is spent on video calls, answering questions like, why does my printer have a mind of its own? At the same time, I pay for groceries, help with the utilities, and maintain the house while my father heals. In contrast, Madison starts an office assistant job making $21 an hour and suddenly starts lecturing everyone about how money management is her burden now, as if her paycheck funds the national budget. The babysitting drama began slowly. Madison told me one day that since I live with my father rent-free, I should babysit her children for free whenever she needed help. She said, it saves me money on childcare, and we are family, we help each other. I reminded her that I work, and not just a little, but more than most people realize because freelancing does not come with hours, it comes with endless tasks. She dismissed it entirely, saying, yes, but you work from home. That is not the same thing. I felt a moment of spiritual departure from my body. I swear I floated above myself like one of those characters in a movie who has just heard something so outrageous their soul temporarily exits in protest. The first day I agreed to watch the kids was chaos. In 5 hours, Lucas managed to spill an entire bottle of maple syrup into my mechanical keyboard that cost $300, because he wanted to make it sticky like Spider-Man. Emma drew on my wall because she thought it looked too white and boring, which was apparently a crime she felt compelled to correct. Madison handed me $5 on her way out the door, said, thanks, sweetie, and did not even stop walking. $5. I have seen pets receive more dignified compensation for their labor. But today was the day everything escalated into a full wildfire. I was in the middle of a remote work meeting with a client who already had the patience of a snapping turtle, when I heard aggressive pounding on the front door. Not a polite knock. Not even a concerned knock. The kind of pounding that made me think someone was either dying or selling solar panels. I opened the door and there stood Lucas and Emma. Alone. No coats. No shoes. No Madison. Her minivan was already halfway down the street. She did not even slow down long enough for the engine to fully idle. She only shouted out of the window, thank you, Ethan, in a tone that suggested I was some kind of unpaid intern for her personal childcare corporation. I texted her, are you serious? You just left your children at the door and drove away. She replied, I cannot be late to work. You know you are home. Be grateful I trust you with my kids. Be grateful. The woman had just abandoned her children like a package she did not want to sign for, and I was supposed to be expressing gratitude. I was in the middle of a deadline with a father doing physical therapy in the next room, and now I had two shoeless children who were already fighting over which one got the good spot on the couch. I called her. It went straight to voicemail. I called my aunt for support, and she said, "Honey, you do have the lighter schedule." I told my mother what happened, and she said, "Your cousin is overwhelmed. You are more flexible." Every single relative treated Madison like she was a heroic, overworked martyr and I was the ungrateful troll hiding under her bridge demanding a toll. That was the moment I realized I had spent my entire life carrying responsibilities nobody else wanted, and the reason they kept giving them to me was because I never pushed back hard enough. Something clicked in my brain in a very sharp, very clean way. I was done being the family's default solution to every problem they did not want to put effort into solving. I was not their free childcare. I was not their emotional sponge. I was not the understudy in the play of Madison's life, jumping on stage to fix whatever disaster she created. And that leads us into. Oh, you are going to enjoy the way this entire disaster mutated into something even more unhinged. After Madison abandoned her children like she was making a porch delivery, I tried to salvage my workday, but trying to finish anything with two bored children running around is like trying to perform surgery during a fireworks show. Lucas decided the remote control was a spaceship, and Emma announced that every blanket in the house needed to be turned into a castle fort, which meant she piled them all in one massive heap and then stood on top of it like a victorious general surveying conquered land. 2 hours passed with the slow, painful stretch of time that only adults responsible for children understand. I managed to keep them alive, which I suppose Madison would consider a sign of my flexible lifestyle. By the second hour, my client had left the meeting early with the words, "You seem very busy," which was professional lingo for, "You are extremely chaotic, and we are not paying for this." My father emerged from his room halfway through, limping with his cane, looking confused and mildly threatened by the noise. He asked if the circus had come to town, which was the most polite interpretation of the chaos I have ever heard. Then, 2 hours after she had vanished in her dramatic minivan exit, Madison finally called. She sounded relaxed, as if she had just returned from a spa appointment, and said, "Hey, can you also feed them dinner? I get off at 8. I felt my eye twitch. I genuinely did not understand how she had this level of delusion. I told her she needed to pick them up immediately. She jumped straight into emotional manipulation, something she has been training for her entire life. She said that since I live rent-free with my father, the least I could do was help the family that helped raise me. I stood in the kitchen staring at the syrup-sticky remnants of my keyboard and thought about all those years of being the kid sent to do every chore, the teenager expected to drive everyone everywhere, the adult asked to fix every broken thing and mediate every fight. I reminded her that if anyone had been the one helping the family, it had been me. I said she had never helped anyone except the nail technician she visited twice a week. That got her. There was this beat of silence where I knew she had switched emotional gears like a professional. And then the crying started. Loud, dramatic, theatrical crying that would have had any casting director nodding in approval. She wailed about how everyone hated her and how she worked so hard and how nobody understood how stressed she was. I felt absolutely nothing. The tank of sympathy had run dry hours ago. I told her clearly, without yelling and without emotion, that her children would be at my house for 20 more minutes. If she was not here by then, I would be calling Child Protective Services. I was not bluffing, and she must have realized that for the first time in her life, because the dramatics stopped instantly. No more sobbing, no more theatrics, no more excuses about rent or stress or family helping family. She arrived at my house in 9 minutes. Flat. If you thought Madison showing up in 9 minutes was the end of the chaos, you severely underestimated my family's commitment to dramatic overreaction. 2 days after the incident, I received a message from my aunt telling me that we needed to have a family discussion about what happened. That phrasing alone made my spine stiffen, because in my family, discussion is never a discussion. It is a thinly disguised ambush wrapped in guilt trips and sprinkled with emotional blackmail. I showed up to my aunt's house, and the moment I stepped inside, it felt like I had walked into a spiritual intervention. Everyone was sitting in a perfect circle in the living room, candles lit, curtains drawn, furniture rearranged like they were preparing to summon a ghost. Madison was in the center on the only armchair, positioned like she was the grieving widow in a dramatic play. She had a tissue in her hand for emotional effect, even though her face was suspiciously dry. My uncle, cousins, mother, aunt, and even 2 relatives who never show up unless there is free food were all there, staring at me with expressions that ranged from concerned to judgmental to bored. The moment I sat down, they launched into the topic with the subtlety of a marching band. My aunt said that I had been harsh and that families should support each other without involving government threats. My cousin chimed in about how stressful parenting is and how I should have been more understanding. My uncle started pacing like he was about to give a motivational speech and said that responsibility is something adults must share. I listened to all of it while wondering if any of them understood how absurd the situation was. I was being scolded as if I had committed a felony instead of merely refusing to accept unpaid labor. When it was my turn to speak, I reminded them that families should not abandon their children on a doorstep and assume the nearest adult will become the unpaid babysitter of the day. I said that I have work, obligations, and a father recovering from surgery, and that none of them had checked on him once during the last few months, yet they felt comfortable lecturing me about responsibility. My uncle puffed out his chest and attempted to tell me that I was failing to understand the weight of family duty. I reminded him that he had once lost Lucas in a Costco and had only found him because the manager announced on the loudspeaker that a child in a Batman t-shirt was sitting at the customer service desk eating free samples. My uncle sat down immediately and did not speak for the rest of the gathering. Madison kept trying to look wounded, clutching her tissue like she was the victim of a tragic misunderstanding instead of the architect of her own disaster. She made a few weak attempts to twist the narrative by saying she felt attacked and unsupported. My cousins nodded along until my grandmother, the most brutally honest person in the family, finally snapped. My grandmother, who usually kept her opinions subtle and quiet, leaned forward and said that she could not understand why everyone was trying to blame me when Madison was the one behaving like she discovered employment for the first time in human history. She said she could not believe the rest of the family was scolding the person who had helped everyone for years while defending the person who could not be trusted to return library books on time. The room went silent. The kind of silence that does not just hang in the air but presses down on everyone like a weight. Madison looked stunned, as if my grandmother had betrayed her with a knitting needle to the heart. My cousins avoided eye contact. My aunt stared at the floor. Even the 2 freeloading relatives who came for snacks sat back like they were watching an award-winning plot twist unfold in real time. It was at that moment that the illusion snapped. The meeting could not continue because the myth they had been trying to uphold, that Madison was a fragile flower and I was the ungrateful storm, collapsed instantly under the truth spoken by the one person they all respected. Nobody knew what to say after that. The room stayed heavy with tension until my grandmother stood up and announced that she was done listening to nonsense and was going home to feed her cat. And just like that, the seance circle dissolved. People shuffled out awkwardly, avoiding me, avoiding each other, pretending they had not just attempted to hold a court trial in the living room over the fact that I refused to be the personal nanny for a fully grown adult who could not organize her own life. Meeting adjourned. If there is one thing I have learned from my family, it is that the universe does not need to create chaos when my relatives are doing the job themselves. After the living room seance where my grandmother verbally body-slammed half the bloodline, I thought Madison would at least take a few days to reflect on the fact that she had been publicly roasted into silence. Reflection is free, after all. But introspection has never been in her skill set, unless you count staring at herself in her phone camera. 2 days after the meeting, my phone lit up with her name. I stared at it like it was a ticking bomb, wondering what fresh performance she had prepared. I answered, expecting an apology, or at least something resembling accountability. Instead, she launched right into her request. She wanted to know if I could watch the kids again, just for an hour, because she needed to run an errand. No apology for the previous disasters. No acknowledgement of the family meeting. Not even a greeting. Just pure, unfiltered entitlement. I felt a strange calm settle over me. It was the kind of calm that comes when you realize you have reached a point where frustration cannot touch you anymore. I told her that I could help, and then I told her the price. $100. She reacted with the kind of shock usually reserved for discovering a hidden betrayal in a dramatic television show. She demanded to know why childcare would cost that much. I reminded her of the broken keyboard, the syrup incident, the redecorated wall, the noise, the stress, and the fact that her children had previously arrived at my house without shoes like wayward forest creatures. She tried to argue, but I explained that this was the discounted family rate. Her outrage increased. She vowed she would never pay that, as if her declaration carried the weight of royal law. I told her that was her choice. I fully expected her to either show up anyway or attempt to guilt-trip me further, but instead she hung up. I assumed she would complain to the entire family, and I was right, because within 30 minutes my phone buzzed with messages from relatives telling me I was being greedy, selfish, or dramatic. I responded to none of them. A silence can be more powerful than any argument, especially when you know the opponent is fueled by self-delusion. The best part of the entire situation unfolded later that same day. Madison managed to find a real babysitter, a teenager from down the street who is known for carrying a glitter-covered purse, missing 3 acrylic nails at any given time, and posting motivational quotes with misspellings on social media. Madison praised this girl like she had discovered the solution to all parental problems. She bragged about her professionalism and said she finally found someone who valued family. Then I learned the rate. $120. Yes, the teenager with the glitter purse charged $20 more than my so-called outrageous fee. Madison paid it without question. She even defended the price to the rest of the family by calling the teenager a trained professional, despite the fact that this girl once set off a smoke alarm trying to microwave a cookie. To make things funnier, the babysitter informed Madison that she needed bookings in advance, which meant spontaneous drop-offs were over. Madison proceeded to complain to the family group chat that childcare was too expensive and that she wished people in this world were more supportive of working mothers. While she went on this rant, I sat at my desk sipping an iced coffee, listening to the hum of my brand new keyboard, and admiring the freshly repainted white wall behind me. There was a certain beautiful irony in the moment. All the chaos, all the drama, all the guilt, all the manipulation had collapsed because she simply did not want to pay me $100, yet she handed $120 to someone else with the enthusiasm of a customer tipping at a fancy restaurant. Since then, Madison has not attempted to leave her children with me. Not once. Not even hinted at it. She has kept her distance with the quiet awkwardness of someone who fears being reminded of their own poor decisions. Family members gradually stopped commenting, because they eventually realized I was not budging, and frankly, they were tired of listening to Madison complain. My house is quiet again. My work is uninterrupted. My father is recovering well. My keyboard glows with newness, and my walls are once again the calm, undamaged white they were always meant to be. So yeah. I'm good. And that wraps it up. If you stuck around through all that family chaos, seriously, thank you for listening. Your support means a lot. If you enjoyed the story, or if it made you laugh, or even if it made you yell at your screen thinking, "Ethan, run," go ahead and hit that like button. If you want more stories just like this, make sure to subscribe so you do not miss the next one. And tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place, because I know everyone has an opinion on this kind of family drama. Thanks again for being here, you all make these stories worth telling.